Welcome in, everybody. This is the Hill Pursuit podcast, and we have another good one today. This is a speaker series episode with Dave Capitano. Dave is a Victory multi-sport athlete, Hill Pursuit athlete. I've been with Dave for quite a while now, and this is a great episode. If you don't know, most of you know. If you're listening to the show, you know me, you know Dave. You've heard me, at the very least, you've heard me talk about Dave in some of the podcasts. Quite regularly, to be honest. Most of you know that Dave is a very, very hard worker. He's a very accomplished businessman, husband, father, grandfather. Dave is retiring this year. He's turning 60. I'm not giving it all away, but this episode has a lot. It is jam packed with lessons he's learned along the way. Um, in terms of his career, lessons he's learned with his bodybuilding journey, a little bit of the tattoo journey, excuse me, and of course, we dive into any and everything related to Iron Man and humongous, monstrous goals that Dave has in this year, 2026. So, this is an incredible episode, one that you definitely do not want to turn off early. So make sure you have the time. This is episode 109. Wow, we're almost at 110. 109 of the Hill Pursuit podcast. This is another speaker series episode. I'm really excited about what the speaker series is doing. It seems to be moving in a awesome direction where people are reaching out to me, asking me for more of the speaker series. I'm starting to line up other athletes, professionals in the field, in the industry, and the speaker series is really taking off. I love where it's going. It seems like there's a lot to be learned from other people's mistakes, journeys. Of course, they're sharing things they've done very well, accomplishments, things that maybe they've had to take a step back from and learn from to be better moving forward. And all of this content within the speaker series can help you. Okay. It's helping me to hold these conversations, catch up with friends, at former athletes, current athletes, professionals in the industry. It's just been a great time. I'm loving every minute of it. So I'm going to keep the speaker series going. If you have questions about it, please don't hesitate to ask me. But I will also always be dropping the current speaker of the episode. I'll always be dropping their contact information, what they're willing to provide in the show notes. So if you haven't already, go ahead and check that out for Dave because it is there. Of course, if you want to reach out to me directly, most of you who listen to this know me. Call me, text me, that's fine. You can also email me, hillpursuit@gmail.com. You can find Hill Pursuit on any and all of the social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram. We're actually on LinkedIn. We have a YouTube channel and we're on X as well. All of that is just at Hill Pursuit. And of course, if you want any coaching information or more information about Hill Pursuit, just in general, again, or more specifically, you can check out the website, hillpursuit.com. Thank you so much for being here. Again, this episode, Dave Capitano speaker series. This is a very valuable episode. I encourage you to listen the whole way through. Heck, even take notes. Share this episode with a friend. This is one you do not want to miss. So if you can't listen to the whole thing now, save it for later because it's a good one. Thank you for being here. Enjoy the episode.
Just adjust here. There we go.
Looking good, man. How are you?
I'm doing well. So you can hear me and I can hear you.
Yeah, I'm perfect over here. Hey, thanks for being here, man. How are things?
Things are going well. I'm just going to turn up the hearing aids here, so we're
Yeah,
all good.
turn them up, man. We're going for 30 minutes, so make sure those things are working. What's going on with you? You look good. You feeling okay?
Feeling good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Everything's well. At my age, you got the normal aches and pains here and there, but nothing that I'm too worried about.
Speaking of your age, and we'll wait to get into this completely, but holy cow, does Dave have a bomb to drop on this episode of the podcast. So we'll get to that in terms of what you're doing this year and things you have planned and all of that, which is incredible. So if you're listening and you've heard that much, make sure you stick around because it might be a while till we really get into that. But yeah, let's catch up a little bit. How's training been going for you?
Training has been well. As you know, that the swim is what the big focus is for me. So
Yeah,
we're starting to kind of reset that for this year. So we're stepping back a little bit, going to do a bit more technique training, and
yeah.
hopefully get us in a position where we're coming out of that water a little bit more efficient and hitting that bike, a little bit more stronger. So that'll be the goal for the next couple months. The bike and the run are what they are for me. We could probably get a little bit better, but the swim is, I think, where the most improvement could come from.
Oh, completely. I completely agree. And I say this to a lot of people, and I believe this anyways, whether or not I've had the conversation with you or someone else. I know we've talked about it, but even if you get more efficient in the water, but your time in a race is the same or something like that, right?
Yeah,
You're still setting yourself up to have a much better day
yeah,
because of the energy that you're saving just purely based on efficiency in the water. So, you know, getting better in the water isn't necessarily seeing a quicker time on your Garmin watch when you exit the water. And a lot of people really get tripped up with that. They're like, "Hey, I'm working so hard on the bike or I'm in the water," and it's different on the run because you're pushing as hard as you can to the end of the race, but I'm working hard in the water or the bike, and my time was the same. Well, if coach tells you to pull back and hit this power output or hold this pacing, or count your breaths per stroke or whatever it is, or vice versa. I mean, we're just working on efficiency. So um, I think that's in the realm of possibility without a doubt, Dave. So let's talk about that a little bit though, because you had a pretty awesome. Let's go into 2025, right? So this is this episode is going to be out pretty soon, I imagine, but we're early January here, almost a week in. We've had plenty of time, actually, not plenty of time in your case, but some
yeah,
time to kind of reflect on the 25 season.
yep,
Take us back, like back. Not I know we had an epic finish to the season.
yeah.
I would
It
call it
might
epic.
it might even be worth going back to 2024
Sure.
because 2024 was the year that I was hoping to get the full in, and we started off in 24 with the Pittsburgh Marathon,
Yeah.
and just devoted a lot of time and energy to that. And right after that, I think we went 2 weeks. We went into the Mighty Moraine Olympic, and then we right into Happy Valley, the 70.3. And by the time I got done with Happy Valley, 70.3, and I just about made it. It was 8 hours. And I was really hurting, physically hurting,
Yeah.
and I said to myself, there's no way I can mentally or physically think about doing a full, which was the goal for 2024 September. But anyway, we regrouped. We got our head back on, and we got into New York 70.3. Felt much healthier, much better. So I finished 2024 really eager about trying to figure out what 2025 is going to look like. So we decided to do Chatty 70.3 in May to allow us an opportunity to go back in September and do the full. They'll learn what the course was, get familiar with the water. Um, the Friday that we're driving down, my wife and I drove down to Tennessee. That we get the email that the water's canceled. The river's moving too fast. So we end up doing that 70.3 without the ability to get the swim, which is very disappointing because we made that whole trip for it. So we said, okay, well, we need to get some water practice. So we jumped into Ohio, and as you know, and people listen to your podcast, that was a difficult swim for a lot of people, and myself included. But I felt came out of that water with the fastest time I ever had, and because I felt really good. I don't just didn't shake me up. It didn't get me nervous. I'm a slow swimmer. You and I were talking about it. We said the people up front probably got hit hard, and the people in the back were probably easy because we missed everything. And I was clearly in the back with my wetsuit.
Well,
So then we came out that
mhm.
70.3 feeling really good.
Yeah.
So it took us to Chatty, and in September we get the full. I get the full effect of the swim and the whole course, which is outstanding. But at the end of the day, when we finished that race, I just said, look, I got out that water like an hour or 15 minutes. There's no way that was a realistic swim for me, right? There's no way I'm swimming a full distance in an hour and 15 minutes. So I called you up. I said, hey, look, I can't finish like that. I can't spend the winter wondering whether I could get out of the water in time. So we jumped into Arizona. I think we had 4 or 5 weeks to get ready for it. And really want to feel what the full swim was. And we did it. We got out in 2 hours and 10 minutes, whatever it was. We just
Hmm.
about made it. And I'll
Hmm.
tell you that I entered the water half, in the middle of the pack. I told you this, and I end up dead last time wise. And there was a couple hundred people still in the water after me, and I never stopped swimming. And I just swim straight. I'm comfortable. Never paused. Never stopped. But clearly the amount of legs and arms around me start disappearing after a while, and I start seeing those boats circling me, and I got holy shit, I'm running out of time. But we got out of the water. It felt really good. We had other issues. We had some bike issues. We had a flat tire. But all in all, I was really happy we did it that way. So I feel really, really excited about 2026 and trying to stay healthy. So that's a quick recap for you for
Yeah,
2 years.
I mean, that's an incredible recap.
Yeah.
I took some notes. I have some questions. I want to know how, like, take us inside the mental game of all of your work on the swim and the focus on the swim and signing up for Chatty 70.3 to prep for it for later and not getting the swim because that's never happened to me. I've done almost 10 half irons. I know it happens to a lot of people and it's bound to happen to us all at some point. But talk us through that. Like what was going through, I kind of know what was going through your mind, but I want you to share
So
so we can hear.
So it was a nine and a half hour drive. We drove down,
Yeah.
my wife and I drove down, and we're halfway down there. 4 hours into our trip, we get the email, and we stopped for lunch,
Yeah.
I asked, I said, Elizabeth, I said, what should we do here? And I'm like, she goes, we got to do it. I said, yeah, but the whole idea was to get the swim. Do you really want to drive another 5 hours? Is it worth it? And then before she said anything, said, no, we're doing this. I said, whatever it is, it's going to be a good experience and we're going to have a good time. And we did. We had a really good time. Went down there and we had the experience. But I was having a mental argument with
Yeah.
myself whether I was going to do it. And then I kept thinking to myself, what are you going to feel like if you use that as an excuse to turn around and not do it? And I said the whole idea of doing all this stuff is to do things against all the adversity that we're getting and kind of the challenges that are in front of us. So it really became a no-brainer that we're going to drive another 5 hours, and even though we're not going to get to swim, and we're going to see the rest of the course, which of course
Right.
they end up changing the rest of the course anyway. So nothing looked the same, but it was still good experience.
Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
every race is different. I mean, this is an extreme example, right? One leg out of the three disciplines is canceled, but you know,
Yeah.
even you know, even if you go race the same course year after year after year, every single time you do it, it's going to be different. It might be, it might not be as extreme as like the swim getting canceled or like part of the bike course being under
So
construction, so you
yeah.
only ride 102 instead of 112. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? But it could be the weather, the humidity. It could be, somebody knocks your goggles off in the first 10 seconds. But every single race is different, and you're right. We're working through the challenges that come our way, and in that case, I mean that was a huge mental. That had to be a huge mental challenge for you because I know how much you wanted to get in that water and just prove that you got it.
Yeah. I'll tell you that the advice I would give anybody in any of those situations, you would definitely feel a lot worse if you didn't do it, whatever it was. So
Great
whatever
advice.
obstacles in your way, if you just said, okay, that's enough, I quit. I just couldn't take it that way. I will tell you the funniest thing about it is getting that race done like just a little over 5 hours, and everyone going, "Hey, Cap, that was great. You 5 hours." I'm like, I had to explain to everyone I didn't swim. I
Yeah.
said there was no swim involved with that time. And Hayden, even when it comes to any of the times, we never focused on we need to make the cutoffs. They were always like make the cutoffs and figure out how to enjoy the day. But I told you from day one when we started working together, I want to be in a position where my body and my mind were healthy enough to do this type of thing, right? I'm
Mhm.
never worried about trying to get across that finish line and worrying about a time. That never even enters my
Yeah.
head. It's all about I'm finishing at the end of the day. I feel good about it. I feel mentally strong. They were the goals that we're setting, even going into the 26.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I have one more question and then we'll move on. But you mentioned in Arizona, you start to see less arms and legs around you. You see less swim caps when you're breathing and more boats circling, right? What's that feel like? What was going through your mind there?
Yeah, I mean, after that first 70.3 we did, and we got pulled out of the water and got pulled in a boat, I just got this mindset when I start seeing those canoes coming around me, I know they're watching me, right? So it is what it is. You're out there in the water, and I just said, all right, you got to get out of the water. You just keep swimming, and there's not much you could do at that point in time. I will tell you that it felt a lot longer when the boats are next to you, right?
Yeah.
It gets certainly a little bit more nerve-wracking. And then all I do is I start looking for, is there somebody else around me, right? So as long as I'm not in the behind and there's somebody around me, I feel a little bit better. But yeah, I don't ever want to get pulled in a boat again.
Yeah. Yeah. I imagine for sure. Um, all right, Dave, let's take a little bit of a step back here. Why don't you tell us who Dave is outside of endurance sport and why endurance sport fits into your life and kind of how you use it to become better at the daily 9 to 5. I know it's not 9 to 5, but the daily grind.
So, all right, a little bit about myself. So my wife and I have four children, four adult children, five grandchildren, with actually a sixth one on the way. So
Oof.
the family continues to grow, which is great. I spent all my life really, with this fitness journey. I've explored a lot of different things.
Right. Right.
I've done all types of different sports that I played with, and the Ironman was something from a kid that was always kind of in the back of my head. Wow, that was something when you're growing up in the 80s that you were like really in awe about watching that on an ESPN on a Saturday
Yeah.
afternoon when they actually televised those types of things back then. And it was always something in the back of my head. Never thought that I could get there. I really never had any urge to even run. People would always see me. They say, "Oh, you're in shape. You must run a lot. You must do this." And very much to the contrary. I didn't do any type of endurance work. I did CrossFit. I did all kinds of things. But
Hmm.
anyway, I set this goal to, I got exposed to the sport. My son-in-law was doing it. I went to a race. I saw the team. I kind of said, this is interesting. I want to get involved with it. Went out and bought a bike, jumped in a pool, start cursing at you the first time I got out of the pool, like this is
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
But we took it one step at a time because the goal for me was I wanted to do a full Ironman by the time I turned 60. And I'll be turning 60 in June of 2026. So I'm
Don't
happy to
don't
say that I accomplished that.
Oh
That was the
yeah,
original
absolutely.
goal to do a full Ironman before I turned 60. So
Yeah. I was gonna say don't spoil
yeah,
what else is associated with
yeah.
that because that's coming. But
So so
awesome, man. Awesome. Yeah, keep
just
going.
yeah, just like it's a little bit. So 5 years, almost 5 years ago, when I turned 55, was the last time I stepped on stage, and that year that actually, if we go back to 50, I was a competitive bodybuilder. So when I turned 50, which is almost 10 years ago, I competed in 15 shows. And it was grueling to stay in shape for 15 shows. That was almost a year period of dieting, get ready to go on stage. And I won the first 14 shows I won. I took first place. And I took second place on my very last show, 15. The 15th show, I took second place. So 5 years later, I would do a series of shows every 5 years since I was 40, and I got my pro bodybuilding card when I was 45. So I was really good at the sport.
It's awesome.
When I turned 55, I went back on stage and competed. I did one show, competed in 5 divisions. I competed against 35-year-olds, beat them. I competed about 45 years old, beat them 55 and older, and I took that show. And then I beat the guy that took the overall show. So I walked out at 55 saying, wow, I accomplished a lot in this sport. I said, now I'm going to turn my goal to something different for 60 when I turn 60. So I went on this tattoo journey and went on this
Mhm.
endurance journey. So that's what got us here.
I wasn't even going to ask that, but tell us about the tattoo journey. You can't just drop that in there without a little, at least a little explanation.
I got the first one under the needle 2.5 years ago, and I'm almost completed my full body suit. Yeah, I just got a little bit left on my leg, and I'll have every piece of my body except my neck and my head covered.
This was
Well, the front of
two
my
and a
neck,
half
the back of my neck is done.
2.5 years ago.
What's that?
Did you say 2.5 years ago?
2.5 years ago, yeah. So I didn't have one tattoo, and then almost got the whole body suit done. So
And what kind
yeah,
of
I
what
get a little bit
inspired that?
extreme, you know.
What inspired that?
Again, it was on the kind of on the bucket list that all things I want to do, and I guess there's a level of mortality that you start facing, right? That you want to start getting this bucket list done, and whatever it is, and getting to the point where you're running around with grandkids, you start thinking
Yeah,
about these things, and so yeah, it was just on the list, and then I got hooked on it. So,
cool, cool. Um, I asked this question to everybody within the speaker series, so I'm going to ask you too. You kind of danced around it already, so we might be a little bit repetitive here, but the easy question that you've probably I know you've answered before, I've heard you answer it, is what's your why? But you could think about that question almost like instead of that, kind of like what drives you, because we all have not we all have similar whys, but a lot of people would have most people would have a similar response to what their why is. But after that, there's a level of discipline and consistency and drive that has to be there in order to still wake up every morning and still check off these items on the bucket list. And what makes you do that? Like what makes you wake up and have that fire to accomplish these
yeah.
things?
And so I knew this question was coming, and I really tried to put some thought
Okay.
into it to give you a decent answer. And I don't know if it's just some part of me that likes to keep moving. I mean, over the years, the why it's changed. There's always different reasons. I'm not very good idle. Like most people, you
Yeah.
exercise to calm the mind. There's all those things. I'll tell you this though, the one thing that drives me at the end of the day is I don't think we have much that we offer in life, right? I'm I'm a I'll be retiring in May of this year, right? 2026. 35 plus years of professional service. I had a good career. I've done a lot of good things, but at the end of the day, I tell my kids, I said, there's not much you really have to offer up in life except for your word. And when you tell people you're going to do something, no matter how big or small it is, I mean, following through on that means a lot. And that was always in the back of my head from a young person. If I said I was going to do something, I'm going to do it. If I said I'm going to call you at 5 o'clock, I'm calling you at 5 o'clock, right? So if I say if I'm going to do an Ironman before I'm 60, I'm going to do an Ironman before I turn 60, right? So I
Yeah.
think a lot of it comes from my own inner stubbornness, but part of it's just me saying, look, if you're true to your word and you really believe that part of your legacy is going to be this is a guy that does what he says he's going to do, I kind of like to follow through on it. Now, I need to be very careful that I say what I'm going to do because then I get crazy. Then
Yeah.
you got to keep some balance, right? So you got to be careful what you commit to.
That's great though. I love that, Dave. I mean, your word means a lot. And I think that as a coach, that's reassuring to me to know that you're going to put the work in. And if anyone listening knows Dave, he
Mm,
puts the work in big time. There was funny story. There was a time where I was looking at your training peaks and like I was programming for you. This was relatively early in our athlete
Mm.
coach relationship. And I was programming for you like a relatively moderate to moderate high, training stress score or TSS and training peaks. And you were like doubling it on a weekly basis for a couple weeks. And I was just like, holy moly, how is this happening? Putting in an extra work here, extra work there. Like Dave, you are definitely someone who has goals, keeps them, works hard for them. Like I have to do a lot to pull you back, which is not the case for every. I mean, we
Yeah,
all like to think we're that way, but we're not all that way. But yeah, I have to pull you back, man. Like you definitely get after it. So I'm not surprised by your answer at all. I think that is Dave Cap to a T for sure. Like following through, part of your legacy, being true to your word. I love that. That's great. That's fantastic. What what's your biggest weakness? And I don't mean within the sport of triathlon and
yeah,
endurance, but as a man, as a whoever you feel Dave Cap is, what's your biggest weakness, and what do you try to how do you try to work on it and improve it over time?
yeah. So it's probably the same thing. So um, I'll say this. So when I turned 50, we had a running joke. Um, my goal for that year, my like the New Year's resolution for that year was to work out less and start drinking alcohol, right? And people say, because I couldn't do it, right? I couldn't figure out what that rest day looks like. I just couldn't, figure out how to relax. It's not good, Hayden. We know it's not good. There's a physical, it beats up yourself
Yeah,
physically,
yeah,
which is not good. To do 15 bodybuilding shows in 1 year is
yeah.
not good.
That's wild.
It's not
That is
healthy,
insane.
right? It's not healthy physically. It's not healthy mentally. Your relationships with people suffer. You know, Thank God for my wife. She put up with me all these years. So the real weakness is the inability to understand balance and priorities over my career, right? I've been very successful despite the fact that I probably let a lot of, I suffered and gave up a lot of things for other reasons, career wise
Hmm.
and so
Yeah,
forth. So I've really tried over the last probably 10 years, probably, and even the last 5 years, to kind of focus on what balance looks like and how to eat healthier, to not obsess over extra gram of salt in my food, you know to to sleep better. So really focusing on what's really important in life. So maybe back to that mortality issue. I hope
sure.
I go another 25 years, right? But you know, the weakness is me is getting really short-sighted on where priorities should lie, and I've been working really hard to do better at that.
That's great, Dave. That's great. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that too, for sure.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, good. Thanks for sharing that. Um, so you've done quite a bit in a lot of different sports, a handful of different sports. What would you say is the fitness accomplishment? It could be a race finish, it could be the 15 shows in a year, but what's the fitness accomplishment that you're right now most proud of? Because there might be another one day, right? But right now, one that you're most proud
Interesting enough, I stepped on stage on a bodybuilding show with each of my three boys, and didn't compete against them because we were in different divisions, but they all went on stage with me. I was pretty pumped about
of.
that.
That is so cool.
Yeah, all three of my boys did a bodybuilding show with me, and so I was pretty pumped about that. Yeah, that's pretty cool to say.
That is really cool. How old was everybody?
So my oldest guy did his first show when he was 19 and maybe 20, and I was 45, something like that. And then the other guys were like 14 and 16, and I was already in my 50s, 40, you know. So I was later in life, but they were much younger. So
Yeah,
yeah, maybe I'll do it someday. I don't know how it will look with all these tattoos anymore, but that'll be the goal. I love to do an Ironman with them, but they're not quite. get that mentally yet. They don't want to
Yeah.
do that yet. Yeah.
Yeah. Dude, that is really, really cool. Not many
Yeah.
people can say something like that. That is so cool. I
Yeah.
didn't know that. All right, I'm gonna throw a toughest moment question at you. So I'm gonna ask in terms of toughest moment in training, but also toughest moment in racing. So whichever one comes to your mind first, go for it. And it can be something recent. It can just be something that sticks out. You remember that most people say something like, "Oh, it was that first swim session or whatever," something like that. But
Yeah.
it could be anything. It could be something you did yesterday. It could be, just Arizona that we just kind of wrapped up. But anything, yeah,
Yeah.
go for it.
So when you ask that question, Hayden, I think about toughness, physical toughness, like which sessions kind of knock me out, and they're like every other week they're knocking me out. So
Yeah,
that's kind of excites me. I don't think that is tough. Mental toughness, I think, is the hardest one. The ones where you just want to quit and you just don't want to do it. And I have very few of those either. I really I love I love doing things, and that's why when you tell me to do, you set my week up. I already did my whole week, and it's Tuesday, right? Because I did three things today, right? So I just I like to move. So that's not so much that none of that feels tough for me. I think when I think from a training perspective, what's tough is the fact that my mind wants to still do things that my body's not capable of doing anymore,
yeah,
and that could wear on you, and that could wear. I've heard you talk to athletes that get injured and they're sidelined. You know, it's not injury as much as, oh, I want to do that, and I'm like, your body just can't do it anymore.
yeah,
So that's a mental toughness that I'm trying to get comfortable with. From a race toughness, I mean, there's Penn State, Happy Valley, where I was just about getting done with that race. I was hurting, physically hurting. Just was not a good day. So that was a tough physical race. Mentally, I never. I that's why I told you even with Arizona, I never felt overwhelmed mentally, and I always said that's what kind of drives me.
yeah,
If I'm crossing, if I'm doing 15, 16 hours and I'm crossing the finish line, I'm like, hell, that was fun. Let's do this again. The point where it becomes like I don't want to do that ever again, then I'm in trouble.
yeah, absolutely. Um, I love that you said when the mind wants to do things that your body can't do anymore, and the
Mm,
difficulty that comes with that. Because I talk with athletes all the time. Oh, and I also, I talk with my students about this concept too. It's like in a perfect world, we have a straight line periodization program where everyone's lifting more weight every 3 weeks. They're getting faster every 5 weeks. They're able to run longer distances every 8 weeks, whatever it is. But if you do that for your entire life, then you're bigger, faster, stronger, better endurance with every week that passes. You're going to be lifting 3,000 pounds and running
yeah,
3 minute miles, or an hour and a half marathon. It's not, it doesn't happen. You know,
yeah,
um, can we as humans, of course, evolve to get bigger, faster, stronger? Obviously, yeah, over time we all have, but a single person can't, like, you literally can't lift more weight every single time you go in the gym, right? And
yeah,
you can't push more watts every single time you touch the bike. So that's a great, I love that you said that, because that's something that a lot of people do deal with mentally when they want goals tomorrow. Like they want to hit a 300-pound bench press. Well, they want it tomorrow, even if they're at 215 right now. It's crazy how people don't have the patience to put in that time. But yeah, I know that's not exactly the spin that you were taking with
yeah.
that, but I think that's certainly relevant and a good lesson for everyone. But um,
Well, if I
go
can,
ahead.
just, yeah, I want to say because maybe this is something that others that are, or maybe some of our younger athletes that are out there, they're starting their careers. I've listened to a lot of podcasts. Is that the training has really always allowed me to. What it's really been difficult in life is the stresses that come with your career, stresses that come with your family, stresses that come with life. Those the real stresses, right? They're the real things that people have to deal with. The training, we get to choose to do it. And if we could use that mindset that, look, if I could do this, I could do this. If I could step on stage and bodybuild, I could go step on stage and give a speech. If I could finish an Ironman, I could sit in a boardroom in a stressful situation. That's the way I really try to look at things with regards to my career. And because I'm at the end of my career, I think that's the one thing that I've always tried to help with some of my younger partners and the people that I mentored in the professional side is that it's a long run. It's a long marathon. So you got to figure out how to make this work so it doesn't kill you, kill your family, kill the relationships. It doesn't necessarily get easier, but you better have more good days than you have bad.
Yeah, I love that. That's incredible. If I can do this one thing, then I can do this one thing. And
Yeah.
so, like, how often are you thinking in your head, hey, you're walking into that boardroom or whatever it is. Maybe it's something completely different. I'm an Iron Man. Like, I can handle this.
Yeah, for all the all the time.
All the yeah,
And not necessarily that I'm Iron Man, but it's like, Dave, you did this. So
yeah.
um, I'm a very introverted person. I'm not a social person. I have a speech impediment, so I had to learn how to speak. I never very stage fright was one of my biggest fears. So I spent a lot of time teaching myself how to be able to present, how to speak. And so, but it was all because I was in the weight room, and if you could do that in the weight room, you could do it over here, right? So definitely always talking myself up to get that confidence level. What have you achieved? What have you gone through in life? How are you going to use that to learn about this current challenge in front of you?
Yeah, that's great. All right, Dave, I think it's time that we talk about what's next. We only have a couple minutes left. We're turning 60 this year. You said June. And in this year turning 60, why don't you let us know what you will be accomplishing?
So the goal for my 60th year is to do 6 full Ironman. So I just thought it sounded pretty cool, right? I turned 60, want to do 6 full Ironman. So one of the things that I do in Hayden is I say, what's the story that I want to tell at the end of the day? And I thought to myself, when you turn 70, if I get to 70, if you turn 70, I want to be able to say, yeah, when I was young and 60, I did 6 full Ironman. So I want to tell a story, right? So if I want to tell a story, I got to figure out how to tell it. So yeah, I mean, if we tap out at one, we tap out. But the goal is to do Texas in April, Jacksonville in May. We got to do Lake Placid in July, otherwise we won't get it 6 in. Then my wife and I want to take a trip to Italy in September. We'll do Italy. We'll come back. We'll do California in October, and we'll finish with Mexico in November. So if you do your job and get me help injury free, the goal is not to do any of these fast. It's to finish in the 17 plus hours, right? But the goal is to logistically and physically be able to get it all done.
Yeah,
And
wow.
if you invite me back next January, we'll have a story to tell.
Dude, that is incredible. That's incredible. If you stuck around this long, I don't know how you can't be cheering for this to happen. Dave, a lot of people in the victory multisport world, of course, the hill pursuit world, because I talk you up as well, but we all know you. We all root for you. We know you, how hard of a worker you are. So this is super exciting. I mean, I wouldn't say the word is scary, but it's like, it kind of jacks me up a little bit. Like it gets me really excited. I don't know if that's a little bit of fear, a little bit of adrenaline, or like, wow, this is an awesome goal. But yeah, I'm excited, man. Like this is going to be a lot, but it's going to be also be a lot of fun. And I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to that story. And let's go ahead and we'll put it on the calendar, January 6th, 2027. We'll come back and we'll do this again. What else do you have, Dave, for us before we get you out the door here?
So, look, I think this is like everything else. It's another journey in life that keeps us active, keeps us excited, and retiring in and turning 60 and doing this. It's just another way of staying active, right? And if it's something good comes out of it, great. If not, we did something cool and we could look back and point to it at some point in time. So I don't get overly excited about any of it. I don't necessarily get high or lows. I'm just a steady guy. All right,
Mhm.
we're gonna get up today, and this is what we're gonna do.
Yep.
And we get it done.
It's awesome. Dave Capitano, really appreciate it. Hey, real quick before you leave, where can people contact you if they have some questions, they heard some of your story and they want to follow up with you?
So I'm still pretty active on LinkedIn. You could
Okay.
Google me, Dave Capitano on LinkedIn. I post a lot on that. I do post off and on Instagram, Dave Cap 327 on Instagram. You could go back and look at TikTok, but I haven't posted on there in over a year.
Okay.
I got kind of bored with the social media, but LinkedIn's probably the biggest one.
Okay.
And you can certainly find me on LinkedIn, and I'll always respond. I talk to people all the time on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I think we're connected on LinkedIn. I'll find that. But I mean, yeah, like you said, LinkedIn's pretty simple. You don't have an actual handle. It's just your name. So Dave Capitano, look him up on LinkedIn. Dave, that's all I have, man. I appreciate this. This was awesome. Super excited that we finally found the time to sit down, and I know this is going to be really helpful for a lot of people as well. So thank you big time for doing this.
Love doing it. All right, Hayden.
Yeah,
Good to
we'll
talk
talk
to you.
really soon. All
All
right,
right.
see you, Dave. Bye.
All right.
And that's a wrap on Speaker Series with Dave Cap, episode 109 of the Hill Pursuit podcast. Wow, we dropped a pretty big bomb at the end of that episode. Actually, that whole episode was just full of gems everywhere. Dave's been through a lot. Dave has a lot of different segments of his life where he had different journeys that he was on, whether for a physical or a mental purpose. He was striving to achieve something very difficult that very few people achieve at some point in his life, but multiple times. We have the bodybuilding, we have the tattoo journey, which of course might be never ending for him at this point in his life. And then this endurance, um, six full Ironman in the year that Dave is turning 60, but also retiring. So Dave's just incredible. Again, I know if you've listened to the Hill Pursuit podcast before, you've heard me speak about Dave. I may not have dropped his name, but if you somehow go back, you'll notice that I've definitely been referencing Dave on occasion throughout the show and the show's history because Dave is a very, very hard worker. Dave likes to achieve things that very few cannot, and has a lot of respect from a lot of people in the Victory multi-sport community, in the Hill Pursuit community, and the of course the greater Pittsburgh area triathlon clubs in that community. So we're super excited to see what Dave is going to accomplish. And yes, he's right. I do need to get my act together as his coach to make sure that we can achieve these goals in 2026 happy, healthy, injury free, because that is the purpose of it all. So thank you so much for listening. If you've listened this long, really appreciate it. If you want to contact me, hillpursuit@gmail.com. Dave's contact info is dropped in the show notes. You can also find Hill Pursuit at any social media, wherever you social media, Facebook, Instagram, X. We have a LinkedIn, we have a YouTube. Wherever you do that, it's all just at Hill Pursuit. And if you want any more information about coaching or Hill Pursuit in general, check out the website, hillpursuit.com. I appreciate you being here. This was episode 109 of the Hill Pursuit Podcast Speaker Series with Dave Capitano. That's all for now. I'll see you next time. Have a blessed day.